So welcome everyone. My name is Anita Thompson. I teach art workshops for libraries, all ages. I teach at other places too, Autism Cares Foundation, an adult art club at Warwick Township Rec Center. All these places are my favorites. I do love libraries. They really are my favorites as well. So we're going to start tonight with the drawing, and it is very easy. I mean, I know I say this all the time, but it is. It is very easy because it's a silhouette. Oh, looks like Stephanie. Oh, another Stephanie. Okay. Um, so as I was saying, it's very easy. It's a silhouette, and the hardest part you're going to find probably is doing the mixing of the sunset. But we're going to go over it, and you will master it by the end, I promise. So let's get started with the drawing part. I just want to make sure everyone can see me, and I'm just going to mute one more time. Okay, so I also just want to make sure that you can see this up close. You should have on your device the speaker view. So we're going to start off with our horizon. So our horizon line is probably, let me move my paints real quickly. Our horizon line is probably, it's not quite halfway down. It's more like 3/4 down. And so we're going to go about right here with the horizon line. And what we're going to do is we're basically just going to go straight across. And then we're going to fill in where our crane is, where he kind of breaks up the silhouette there. So you just want to be aware of that because you can erase after we're done that. And then we're just going to do a bit of the landscape in the background here on the left, starting off with the darker one. And then also, because this is where our horizon line is, and then we're kind of just going to add a little bit of sort of this section. And as you can see, I created this kind of funky line and then this part because this is really one landscape, but it sort of fades a bit. And the rest is the sky, but we're also going to make sure to add in our sun. Now, you want to draw this really light. I'm drawing it dark so you can see it because I know that lines don't always come out on Zoom. So you want that to be really light because we're going to be using white, and you want to make sure that your white paint covers the moon. It's hard with white paint. So, and then what we're going to do is we're not going to be drawing in the seagulls. We're going to be using paint for those. A lot of this stuff we're going to be just using paint basically. But now we're going to come down and we're also going to just do a quick sort of shape of where we want the sunlight. I said the moon, it's the sun. I apologize. It is sunset. So what I'm doing is, again, I'm sort of creating the shape for where the sunlight is hitting the water. Again, you want this to be light. I did do it a little bit lighter on my canvas, but you want it really light. As soon as we start painting, you can sort of lighten it up with your eraser. And then that's going to lead us down into the final part of the drawing section, almost, besides the crane. We're going to come down here toward the bottom of our, sorry, let me just move this a second. We're going to come down toward the bottom of our canvas here, and we're going to create sort of the section that is the edge of our landscape in front of us. And then we're going to kind of swoop upwards toward the left side of our canvas. And then we're also going to swoop a little bit on this side, but we're going to add a little bit of sort of a shape like this because that is going to be the shadow for our crane. And then we kind of go along the right side. I just realized, let me adjust my camera one more time because the corner of it is not quite making it onto the screen. So I apologize. Back this up. There we go. Sorry for my messing here. Okay, so basically this shape is going to be all of the shadow underneath our crane in the water. And so that's where we're going to draw our crane. And we're going to start off with the legs. And they are going to be sort of like stick figures. So here's the first one. And the second one. Let me draw these darker. Now, cranes have a bit of some thickness up at the top, so um, you don't have to sort of shade it in like I did. I'm just doing that so you can see it more. And basically, these are his legs going in the water. And then we're going to create the shape of his body from that. And basically what we want, this is the bottom portion of his body. And that's the start of his neck. His tail is going to be down here along with the rest of his body. So remember, this is a silhouette. And the other thing is that we're going to be adding more paint. We're going to be actually having the landscape go up even higher at some point, but we'll be doing that with paint. And then along with all of the reeds, right, that's happening, we're going to be painting those in too. So don't worry right now that it looks off. I just want to get you to, get the crane in here. And I'm going to fix his body a little bit because we now want to get to his neck. And basically, his neck is going to go towards, it's going to look like it's going towards the horizon, even though the horizon's in the background, right? It's going to turn a bit, not that much, and then go up, and we have his beak. So, oops, let's see. Let me just get his shape right here, his beak, and then we do have to see the bump of his head. And then it's going to go back down like this and gets a little bit thicker here. And I have to make it a little thicker as I'm going down this way. And as you can see, I've erased basically, in between here so that you can now see him. And I'm sort of fixing his shape a little bit because his neck kind of cranes, literally. And then there's a bump here because that is sort of, forget what part that is. I actually looked it up. And then a little bit higher over on this side and a little thicker, a little more bumpy. And then we see the bumps of his feathers here at the bottom. So sorry for all the erasing here. So he's kind of like that. These are his legs. They are in the water. And that's our basic drawing. So if you need to fix anything at this point, let's do that. I'm still kind of messing a little bit with the top of his head here. There we go. All right. I'm going to let everybody take about 2 or 3 minutes to just kind of, mess again with a little bit of whatever you have to fix. I'm going to take one more look over at mine and erase some of the other lines that are showing through so I don't confuse you or myself when we go to paint. Okay. So I told you it's a pretty easy drawing. Everything is done mostly with paint at this point. And I'll give it another minute or two, and then we're going to talk about the background because we're going to start off with the sky. So you want to make sure that you have some type of palette. I use paper plate, really cheap paper plates from the dollar store. They're awesome. And then we have 2 brushes, and I mentioned this one is about a size 6. This is a flat brush. If you have something bigger or smaller, that's okay. So, the bigger it is, you'll be able to cover more area quicker, but you may not be able to sort of twist it into some of the smaller spaces. So sometimes you may also want, if you have any more brushes, sometimes you want to add a 3rd brush. These are just the basic brushes. So if you wanted to add like a bigger flat brush, that would be probably helpful for you for the background, besides the size 6. So maybe like an 8 or something. Again, you don't have to. And then we have our round brush. This is a size 2. You're also welcome to have a size 4 as well if you wanted to add that. So that would be like 4 brushes if you wanted to. I always have extra brushes on the side over here, but I like to give it out at least the basics. And that's it. So we are going to get started. And we are going to be starting with our flat brush. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating, as you can see, the sunset sky. And so what I like to do is have an under layer of yellow. So we're actually going to start off with yellow in the top left corner. We're also going to go towards our sun, right? And we're going to start creating, basically, we're going to be going like this. And as you can see from the original here, it kind of swoops, it kind of curves the coloring of it. And then it gets really yellow towards our sun. And then this is why I left, I put the sun up here, because then we start to have a little bit of some things that are showing up in the background, and it gets a little bit redder here and here, and then orange and pink, and a few other colors here that will mix. All right, so again, we're going to start off with our yellow. So I like to wet my brush a little bit. And again, this is our flat brush. For those that don't know, a flat brush, basically the bristles are flat. It goes straight across. So we're going to start off in the left corner, and we're going to see how I have that yellow coming on in. And I'm going to go a little closer now since we are finished the drawing part. Let's see, I think we still need some more light. And we're going to also start off in the right corner. Basically what we're doing is we are doing our first layer, which is yellow. And so it's okay if, you know, your entire canvas isn't completely covered in yellow, at least in the background, but you want most of it colored or covered, especially as you get towards the sun here. And as you can see, I'm kind of keeping that shape of the colors kind of coming in from the sides. Again, even though this is just yellow. So we're going up towards our sun. And then we're kind of creating, or stopping, I should say, we're kind of stopping the color right over here. And we're going to do the same on the other side. So you want to make sure that your yellow is coming right up to the sun. And then you're going to kind of swoop that color up on the right as well. Because again, we're going to get darker over here. So there should be a lot of yellow going on. We're going to do the same when we get to the bottom eventually. The other thing that we didn't draw in, because I want us to paint it, are some of the rocks that you see toward the bottom of our canvas. We didn't draw those in. We're going to paint those in as well. So the other thing I want to mention is the best way to paint a sunset in acrylic is to keep your colors, for the most part, pretty wet, to keep your paints wet as you're mixing. And we're going to start doing that after this. So basically, we're going to start mixing all of our colors ahead of time so that we have them. And then the other thing is that if your paint starts to dry, you can add a little bit of water to it to mix it right on the canvas. So just saying that. Okay. So we're going to start mixing up some colors for our sunset. So we have yellow. We are also going to mix a light yellow. So that being yellow and some white. So kind of like a, I don't know, maybe like a lemon yellow. Speaking of lemons, Jean, right? A lemon yellow. So there we go. Here is like a lemony yellow. It's very light. That's going to go towards our sun. We will use it later on as well, down in the water. Um, you can then rinse your brush. So you're going to want to make, a little bit of that. We will make more of that later on. But now you want to mix orange and red because you're going to get like a reddish orange. And that is what's going to go on either side of our sunset here in the corner, sort of like here and here. So we've got like a reddish orange or a tomato. I call it tomato red. It's actually one of my favorite colors. I think it's a really neat color. So cool. It's not quite red, not quite orange. Little of both. Literally, it is. If you look at a tomato is red in some spots, like in the shadows, but it's really orange, orangey red. And we're going to rinse your brush. And we're going to make pink. Just a little bit of pink. So we're going to take a little bit of white or a little bit of red. More white. Got like a Pepto-Bismol pink. Mix that up. And we have, let's see, one more final color. Our next final color is going to be orange and a little bit of black. Just a tiny bit. That's a little too dark. So we're going to get like an olivey greenish brown. Should look like that. A little bit, you know what? A little bit less, a little bit more orangey. There we go. A little bit lighter. And you're going to mix rinse your brush. We mixed a lot of colors so far. So if you want to grab some fresh water, I'm going to do that. It's like you don't have to, but I don't know. I always feel better with a little more fresh water once we start getting into, because the sunset is light. So I'm just going to go grab some water right in the hallway. I hope some of you this summer got to see some sunsets. Um, I have not yet, but I think we will this weekend. Um, we are going to the beach this weekend. We were supposed to go last weekend, but I got sick, so that didn't exactly happen. But anyway, I feel like these sunsets, especially later in August, are beautiful. Even if you're just like walking down your street. I I know we have some really nice ones sometimes. But it is nice near a lake. So, okay. So now we're going to go back to our sky here. We're still using our flat brush. And basically, we're going to start loading all these colors in. So our yellow is dry at this point. And so we're going to go back into the corner and then also on the left side here and here. And we're going to add some lighter yellow. So that's that lemon yellow. And so right here. So again, right up at the top left corner. And you're going to be able to see it on my painting here. So if we go on the left, the top left corner, I'm adding a little bit more yellow because I didn't like how white mine got. I want it to be just a little bit more lemon and less whitish. There. And then here on the left, there. So we're making swooping strokes. I'm going to go a little bit closer now, a little more above. Okay, so here and here. And then we're going to go right up to the right here, again with a little bit of our lemony yellow, right up to our sun here. We're just going to swoop that upwards. And then we're going to work in the middle. So you can leave this color on your brush without washing it for right now, because we're going to come here in the middle and we're going to grab our pink, and we want a little bit of peach happening, which we didn't make. And so we're going to make that by adding in some more of the kind of lemon yellow. So this is very vibrant right now. There's our pink. There's going to be a few places that we put this as well. I'm adding a little bit of water to mine so that it spreads a little more. Now your sunset is probably going to look a little different than mine, and that's okay. That's actually beautiful. It's okay if it doesn't look exactly like this. But we're going to add the pink here. And on the right. And you're going to rinse your brush. So I'll let everybody get caught up. Right now it should look pretty pink. And we're going to start adding in plain yellow again. Our yellow is our mixer. And then we're going to be adding in colors on top of it and as it's wet. So you should have some plain yellow on your brush. You're going to come in again on the left top corner. And then you're going to start to bring those strokes into the pink. You see what happens? So I'm on the edge of the pink here and I'm mixing it. So that swoop that I just created, I'm mixing it with the yellow. And I've added some kind of thick yellow to it. And it's kind of made it tamper it down, and that's what you want. But look how it's starting to sort of shade, right? And you're going to do the same thing on the right side. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of going toward the edge of where the pink is. And then I take the yellow and I'm mixing it almost like the corners of it. And then I'm going back and forth. And you're going to do the same in the middle. So basically what you end up doing is you're mixing yellow in on top of the pink. And then you're kind of spreading it. I just added a little bit of water now, so that it is mixing a little bit better. And we're going to add in some orange on top here now. So just plain orange, not our red orange yet. And you want to add a smaller amount first. And what we're going to do is we're going to start up top in the middle of the canvas. So here's the top part. This is like the middle going down. And we're going to keep swooping, right? So we're going to swoop. And we're extending that orange on the left side and on the right side. But we're not covering up the yellow here in the corner yet on the right. And then we're going to add some strokes of orange by using the side of our brush like this, almost like we're creating a line. So I have to keep dipping into my orange to do that. And the painting is a little darker on the right side, starting in the top right corner and going down towards the pink. So we're using our orange as another layer for that. Basically what we're doing is we're now adding layers. So you can see now that your sky should be getting multicolored. And again, you can add a little dip of water onto your canvas if you want it to blend a little more, just like a little, the tip, dipping the tip of the brush in. But you're going to work your way down on the right side after adding that last bit of orange, and you're going to work your way down into the pink. And guess what? You're going to work all the way down now, because now we're getting toward the darker part. And another layer. We're working our orange down to this part here. Now we're not going to go down yet toward this section because that's going to be where our tomato red comes in. And then we're going to put our sort of olivey green on there too. So again, this is all layered, right? So if it doesn't look like it's layering to you, keep sweeping your brush across it to blend it. See how I'm moving my hand back and forth. Don't be afraid to, blend it. You can always add another color on top because we are going to be adding lots of colors on top. So that's on the right side. And we're going to come back over now to the left side. And we're going to add a little bit of orange right above here on the left. In kind of a swooping line. And then we're going to add reddish orange here. And we're going to still go back and finish off, the sky here, but we're going to come down here and we're adding that new color right before we get to, the mountain here in the back, because that's black. But this is our reddish orange. I have to mix up a little more. And you're going to take that reddish orange and you're going to go across your landscape along the horizon line. And you're going to go into the next section. And that landscape back there, you're going to paint that tomato red. Now we're going to be going back and obviously be adding, darker color into it. That's where our greenish olive brown comes in. But we've got most of the colors here in our sunset. Now we're going to start adding some of the final colors, like we're adding in some more yellow to blend. And some yellow and orange. So we're going to mix up one final color, and it's going to be more of a golden, kind of a golden yellow. So some yellow. And then some orange. So it's going to be more like a golden yellow. See that in comparison to my orange over there, just has a little bit of sunniness to it. And you're going to mix that right on top. in the kind of middle of the swooping colors here. More towards, the left top corner, but not quite in the top left corner because we're going to add more yellow over there. And then you're also going to add it as a little bit of some fogginess happening here in the orange part, and then a bit on the top of the reddish part. So here's how that's going to go. I'm adding a little bit. Basically, we want this to fade out a little. So if it doesn't look like that on yours, you want to add a little more. You can add some whitish yellow, right? Remember that lemon yellow we had? You can add a bit of that to kind of blend that part in. I just added a little bit. So you can use the two colors. That light orange that we just mixed up was the yellowy orange. And you can use the lemon, right? The lemon color. So this color and this color, which is the light yellow, you can use in this situation here as we kind of fade out a little bit of this section. I'm going to add just a little bit more orange back in because I faded it just a little bit. And while it's wet, I'm going to add a little more orangey yellow as well. So now it has kind of a faded look in that area, and that's kind of what we want. And you're going to start doing that now across the way. We haven't filled in any of this color yet. So I'm now using a little bit of the lemon yellow. I had a little bit of the red still on my brush, so I'm erasing, or I'm sorry, putting my brush in water to take the paint off. And I'm now grabbing a little bit of that lemon yellow and mixing it in and getting a little bit of a pinkish color. And then I'm going to add some yellow on top as well. So at this portion, or this part, you want to make sure that the colors are just mixing. So whether yours is coming out a little bit pinkish, whether you start to add some more yellow or orangey red to it. Basically, you just want it to be lots of colors and a little bit darker here when it swoops up on either side. And to be a little bit more blended. So you would take a little bit of a lighter color and blend it in with the color you were using before. So what I'm doing here now is adding a bit of that reddish orange here above and mixing it with just a tiny bit of orange. But I'm doing it all on the canvas so that we get that nice mix of colors. And this is where you can play. I'm going to go back in here and add just a little bit of orange right where his head is. But we're now going to start lightening up a bit using yellow and that lemon yellow and white. Because as we get closer to the sun, it's going to start getting brighter. So one of the first things you want to do is you're going to add just plain white to your sun. So it's going to look like a shining ball of light. And it's okay if it's not perfectly round because the light from the sun and the rays would kind of make it a little bit less round. And so here on the right side, we're going to add yellow after you add the white to your sun. And if you want, you can add some white streaks in your sky as well. Because we're going to be adding yellow, pure yellow, to blend everything again. We don't want to erase any of the colors. We just want the yellow to kind of sit on top of what we already created. So I just am going in now with some pure yellow here in the middle. And I'm coming back up on the left corner to make some more sweeping strokes into the colors that we now have. So I'm going to go really close to show you those strokes. So this is where, like I said, you can play with some color. You can add a little bit of orangey yellow as we do our final kind of swooping. Basically, you want to get the paint wet so that it will blend a little bit. Into the next color. So I'm taking some of that yellow and that, and now it looks a little bit peach. And just spreading it out towards this side. And again, you're going to take a little bit of the yellowy orange. And come in on the right. And you see how I'm taking that yellowy orange and I'm kind of fading it on top of the other color that we have here on the right. And we're about to get dark here on the right side. Using that color that we created. That was the orange mixed with the black. And you're going to add a little bit to the tip of your brush. And you're going to start up at the top right corner. And you're going to start swooping it back and forth. You see how there's a little bit on my brush. And because my paint is wet, it's mixing a little bit. And you're going to keep doing that here. See how the other colors are still visible through that. We're going to do some now on the red part. I have to mix up a little more. So again, it's orange and a tiny bit of black. And this is where we're going to make it seem a little bit misty on this section on the right. And you can add a bit here, swooping across where the horizon line is. And toward the left, you're going to add it to the mountain there. And then we're going to be adding black. But first, we're going to add this color. Now, if your flat brush is not behaving for you, you can switch to your finer brush, which I like to do as it gets toward sort of the edge or this part of the skyline, because it's a little bit easier to kind of fine line each of the bumps and also to kind of fade them out a little better, because that's what we want to do with these, you know, kind of brownish areas. We're going to fade them out. So I do a combination of coming in with my round brush and then taking my flat brush and then kind of dabbing on the other color we used, which is orange and the reddish orange. But now I'm putting in a little bit of orange in the middle of those two colors. And I just blended both of them and make it seem like it is kind of foggy. I'm just kind of blending a bit. I'm going to do that on the other side too. And we're almost done with the top portion, except for our seagulls. So again, I went in after I did this brownish color. I went in with a little bit of orange, and my paint is still a little bit wet. And I'm just going on top of it to make it more look like it's in the distance. Might even add a little bit of yellow in there, like right here. And again, I'm starting to now use my thinner brush, the round brush, because we're going to get really light towards our sun. So especially where two colors meet up, like the fine line here, I just added a little bit of some red. And I'm now going to add a little bit of the um, yellowish orange. Kind of blend that to make it look like, again, it's kind of fading on part of the color here. And then I'm going to start to add some yellow on the right side of the sun. So I'm taking I'm taking my round brush and I'm painting in strokes of yellow. I added a little bit of white. I just want to make it a little bit brighter. And same thing on the left side. I add a little bit of whitish with the yellow. Now this is going to kind of look cloud-like because I'm dabbing the wet paint with this whitish yellow, kind of mixing it. And that's okay. Because now we want it to look a little bit like there might be a little bit of clouds. Mixed in with our landscape there. And so I'm using the round brush to do that. So again, this is yellow and a little bit of white. And you can add a little bit of yellowy orange right here. So it's going to kind of make a little bit of a peach color. That's yellow. And the orange, remember that kind of sunny orange we did? And if you add more yellow, you get a little bit more of a peachy color. And if you add a little bit of white to that, you get like a light peachy color. So you can add all of those things in, mixing it right on the canvas. See, and if I kind of dot it over here, it gives it the impression almost like the clouds are kind of in there as well. I'm adding a little bit of white. We're almost done with this sky. A little more yellow up here. I feel like you can, it's something that you could just keep like messing with. Messing with so much that eventually it gets messed up, so you don't want to do that. And remember, if it's easier for you to use your flatter brush, you can keep going back and forth because the flatter brush is kind of nice to, um, make your strokes kind of blend toward the other colors. Okay, and we're going to add one more dab of white to our sun here. A little bit more thickness of white. And I like to add a little bit of, just a tiny bit of orange in the middle here. And then we're finally going to add black to this side of the mountain. So this is the first time you're going to be using black. And I definitely suggest doing it with the smaller brush, round brush. And you're just going to kind of mix it in with the brown that's already there, making a few little lumps and then making it really thin toward the horizon. I'm just adding a little more orange on the right side to kind of, again, make it a little more smoky looking. Maybe a little fuzzy. And we're going to add our birds. Now the bottom portion of this goes a lot faster, but let's add our birds. We add our crane and all of the surrounding portions of it last, but we want to add a little bit of black to our round brush. And let me fix the view again. And basically what we're going to be doing is we are now going in and we're going to be adding our birds. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to make more than that, you are welcome. But our first one is here towards the left. And you want to make sure that you've got the really thin part of the brush, the pointed part, close. And if it's too thick, you want to thin it out with a little bit of water, just a tiny bit. And we make some other ones. And just go really carefully. There's another one. This one's going to be a little bigger. So again, I use water and the black. And almost make it like V-shaped. And then we've got a really tiny one here. And we are about to go now into the water. And we're going to use the same concept, starting off with yellow. And this one is going to be a bit faster because we want the water to look a little bit choppy with the colors. So what we've been doing with the sky, we wanted to get more of a blending technique going, but with the water, we want a little bit of a blending technique. Sorry, just to fix there we go. We want a bit of a blending technique, but we want it to be a bit more choppy. So we're going to start off with our flat brush and cover it in yellow, except for the light shining on the water going down. All right, so basically what you can do is you are just going to cover the whole left side in yellow, going right up to where the mountain is in the background. You want to be careful, obviously. And you're going to go all the way down to where the corners are, right? That we've drawn off the corners. And you just want to cover that with yellow paint, not the corners and not this part down here. That's all going to be black. But this portion here, and then also on the right side. So our first layer is yellow. Again, going around the crane at this point. So if you need to switch to your round brush, you can do that. And remember, we'll also be adding in some um, rocks in silhouette as well, but that will be with paint. Also remembering to go in between the legs of the crane. We can always repaint them if you paint over them. But this should be sort of a quick laying in of your first layer. And bring again to be extra careful as you get towards the crane and towards your horizon. And we're going to work lighter first. And so what we're going to do first is we're actually going to work into the light part first. And that is going to be white in half of it. So this is the light part that's reflecting on the water. And then in the second half, it's going to be yellow. So I know that the canvas is white, but we're going to be using white paint on top of it and making strokes on either side of this area that we drew downward. We're going to be making strokes to kind of expand that area. So you want to wash your brush and make sure it's nice and clean. Dry it on your paper towel or towel, whatever you're using. And you're going to get some pretty thick white paint. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to start painting downward into the shape that we created for the light. And you're going to do that probably the whole way at first, just making it white. So now it should be paint white. And now you're going to add some more white to the tip. And you're going to start up at the top. And you're going to start making strokes that are going into the water. So like you're going over the shape and a little bit into the water, all the way down. So that's going to create what looks like, it's the two sides of it. Now there's some, white And then you're going to mix some white and yellow on your brush. Or if you have that lemon yellow left over, I have to make more. You're going to now go into the sides, right next to where you created that light. And you're now kind of expanding it, touching the edge of the white shape with this lemon yellow and going into your water. You're going to do that twice on either side. Your next step is now going to be using your reddish orange. So you may have to mix up some new reddish orange. You're going to want to mix up quite a bit because this is going to be one of the colors, the second colors that is in our layers. And then we're going to put some light colors on top of it. So again, this is red and orange mixed together. See, I have quite a bit there. And we're going to use our flat brush. And we're going to start doing sweeping motions on the left side. And I'm barely touching my canvas. And we're going to kind of skip spaces to make it look like waves. And you're going to do that all the way down till you hit the part that we haven't painted yet. So we're going to do the left side first and then the right side after. Now, this is where we're going to be going pretty fast because you're now going to not rinse your brush. You're going to grab orange. And you're also going to add some orange kind of in between and a little bit on top of that red. So you're now sort of mixing it in or dulling it a little bit. Remember, we're going to stop before we get to the shine here. And when you're ready, you're going to rinse your brush after you complete a little bit more of that reddish orange, because the next color you're going to do is your I almost said the lemon, not the lemon, the kind of lemony orange color. It's that yellow mixed with orange. So we want this while the paint is wet, so that's why we're working so fast. So this is yellow and orange on my brush mixed together. This is the lemony orange. And then again, you're going to now start kind of dabbing in where you put the red and the reddish orange. You're going over everything. And you see how I'm blending it? If you need more, go back to your palette and you add some more. See, I'm blending it. I'm kind of sweeping my brush and then also dotting it at the same time. Sweep, right, and dot at the same time. I'm kind of going fast because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to blend it a bit, and then we're going to add some yellow and white on top. So again, keep going back to your yellowish orange. Now you still want some of that red to be shown, that reddish orange to be showing, but you want some of it to be kind of tame. So it should now look like a mixture of yellow and orange. But now we're going to add the lighter spots and a little bit of dark. First, we're going to add a little bit of the dark with that brownish color. Remember that brownish color we made with the orange and the black? We're going to add a tiny bit of that. So again, remember that orangey black. We're going to add a really tiny bit in a few spots. Up at the top. And then a few more spots, maybe 3 or 4. And staying mostly towards the left side. And you want your paint to still be wet so that it blends in. And after that, you're going to rinse your brush and add yellow. You're going to rinse your brush, and you're now going to add yellow kind of in between and a little bit on top of what you were doing, but you're going to come at it from the light side because the water is lighter towards where the sun is. So again, I'm just taking the brush and using lots of the yellow paint, coming over from this side where the light is. And when we get down towards this part, we want a lot of it to be yellow. That's where we're going to place our rocks. And we're going to add our final um, addition of white again in the middle, some chunky white paint to make it look very, very much like sun on the water. And what you can do now on the side is dot the water almost like it's sparkling with the white. On either side. So you see that? It's kind of sparkling. Now the other side. So we're going to do the middle part between the sun, right? The water, the sunlight on the water, and between the crane because it's a little bit lighter there. And we're going to use that orange and yellow. So remember that orangey yellow we made. Gotta make a little more. And we're gonna very lightly, so it should be a little more yellowy, right? Looks kind of like, I don't know, like a melon color. And we're gonna start dotting every other, we're making kind of like the waves like this. So I'm taking my brush and let me just do this up close so you can see. See what I'm doing with my brush? How it's, every other is that color. You want to make sure to, go through the legs here. You may have to kind of paint over them a little bit. And then we're going to get darker. on the other side with the tomato red. So again, this time the tomato red, you're going to do it how you did it with the other one, the other side. You're going to kind of go back and forth, adding the red. It stays a little bit lighter here at the bottom when we get to, the black part. So we're going to add some more yellow to that. But basically, you're going to be going back and forth. And then this is where you're going to add. So I didn't wash my brush. And I'm adding orange to it because now I want it to blend all those colors. And I'm now, since the paint is still wet, I'm now going over it with the orange. We're going to mix in a little bit of yellow at the end. And we'll be done with the water. And then we're finally doing the silhouettes, which is our finishing touch. So here again, this should also be pretty fast. You're probably you should be running into your crane. You don't want to paint over him completely, but you should be kind of going along the edge of him. You might want to make some of that darker, um, darker area, kind of like right behind the crane. Maybe add a little bit of orange so that it blends in with the other side. Also, if you are having trouble with kind of getting around the crane or in the other, kind of parts that are a little bit trickier, you can also switch to your round brush. Remember, think streaks of strokes going from left to right. Can you see how those streaks are coming? This is where you can add some yellow. And then again, you always want to blend it a little bit. Add a little more yellow at the bottom. All right, and when you're ready, we're gonna load up our brush with black, and we're gonna paint this front part first. And basically, we use our flat brush first. And we do the reeds last. So the thick black parts we do first. Just have to be careful not to stick your wrist or your, kind of like leaning your arm in. Now here again, if you feel like you do a little better with the outlining with your um, round brush, you can switch back and forth to that. I definitely do, um, as I do the crane, even the rocks. So remember, as we get towards our crane, we're also going to be creating, this is shadow happening in this pointy part, but we're going to do that with our round brush. That we do want to make sure to do with our round brush. So again, fill in the parts that, are thicker. It's a bit in the front. And then you're going to switch to your round brush to make the landscape edging bumpy here towards the bottom, middle. Because it's the edge of the land. And this is going to bring us over to the bottom of where our crane is. And we start to make swooping lines that get smaller into the water towards his tail. And again, this is with your round brush. So this is sort of his shadow, or it is his shadow. So it's going to look a little like that. It's going to look a little strange until we fill in our crane, which is our next part. And again, at this point, everything is kind of done with your round brush, these finer details. And here again, with the crane, I like to use, a lot of water with the black and outline so that it almost becomes like ink, like the consistency of ink, and then we can fill it in. So I do two outlines, on either side. And the other thing is too, if you feel more comfortable using your flat brush in the thicker parts of the crane, which I do go back and use my flat brush to fill it in, you can certainly do that. So you outline him and then you fill him in. You're almost there. And don't forget his legs. He's a little, wider at the top of each of his legs. And then he gets really thin. So you can, lighten up on the paint. As you whittle down toward the shadow. I feel like I'm always touching up something on him. His chest here, make that a little bit more. And you're going to add your rocks here. Again, just using, your brush here and making kind of like lines, like lumpy lines, right? These are rocks. A little more flatter one towards us. The smallest one there toward the water. And then finally, this is where we create all the reeds that are sticking out. So again, I use water and black and I roll my brush so that the point gets very pointy. And I go lighter at first. So I use more water at first to make sure that it's more liquidy. And then I start to create the reeds on the left side. I kind of go up along the canvas at first in this section. And then I start to pull away really quickly. And you can make different sizes. You can make them, if you hold your brush, almost like you're barely touching the surface, you can make it very thin and keep going back into your water and your paint. You can make, wheat by going like this. And make lots of little shrubs on top. And it all has to come down from, you definitely want to pull from the bottom part of the black here, because if not, it just kind of looks like it's floating. And for good measure, you want to come out to the side here. I made mine kind of curving towards the center. And then you do the repeat on the other side, and you can make it as close to, your crane as you want. Can't wait to see these. I made kind of like um those, oh, they're not really pussy willows, but like they're like those reeds. I saw them in a picture. And so I made a lot of those on the right side here. The top part is a little disconnected from the stem. And you can make some that are, shorter. It'll look very realistic. You can make them different lengths and, things kind of bumping into each other and dots of things that are kind of twisting. You can make things that look a little bit like flowers. Again, this is, um, and also you can make it a little thicker at the bottom by just painting in a little bit of the black, making it a little higher. It's your lake, so you can make things, I said, look like flowers. You can make a dragonfly, a butterfly. do that. I didn't do that in my other one, but I'm gonna do it in this one. I don't know, I think I went a little thick on my dragonfly and it looks like a bat. So I'm gonna I'm gonna have to just paint over it when it's dry and redo that. See, even artists make mistakes. So I'm curious to see what everyone's looks like. I'm gonna stop the recording.